All right. Well, it is 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Welcome to Overwatch University, Sales and Marketing, telling the right story. My name is Susanna Song. I'm the Communications and Marketing Director at Highwire Networks. I know it's been a crazy week, somewhat distracting, so I commend all of you for being with us this morning. I recognize several of your names, actually many of your names, so welcome back to Overwatch University. And if you're new, we are so glad you're here. I think you will find tremendous value and find several applications at the end of the hour. One of my favorite quotes about storytelling is from the CEO of Mandalay Entertainment. His name is Peter Guber, and he says this often. He says that purposeful storytelling is not show business, but it's good business. And so whether you're a salesperson or the owner of an MSP or you just work in the IT department, we all need to have a compelling story because we're not going to sell security based on a good tool, but really connecting with our customers and our prospects. So who better to talk about this and explain this than our CEO and president of Overwatch Managed Security. He actually founded Overwatch in 2018. For the past 20 years, he's led Highwire Networks, which is a leading global technology systems integrator. In 2018, he brought home the most innovative approach to service delivery award by Field Service USA. And he is quite the entrepreneur. He expanded our electrical services in 2019 through a joint venture with JTM Electrical. And he's a husband and father of 2 children. He lives near our Batavia headquarters, which is a western suburb of Chicago. So good morning, Mark. Thanks so much for being with us. I know you're busy. You have a huge load to carry, yet you are passionate about Overwatch University. And so we thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Susanna. I think you just called me a storyteller, which hopefully isn't a euphemism for fibber. So I appreciate it. That's funny. I didn't know you were going to use that quote, and I've never heard that quote. But Peter is actually Paul is my brother-in-law's boss. So
really,
yeah, small world. That's he's as my brother-in-law says in Los Angeles, where everybody thinks they're somebody, he actually is somebody. So pretty fascinating guy, and it has a lot of really great things that he's said over the years. So that was a great quote. Thanks to everybody for joining, and I hope my audio is okay. As Susanna said earlier, if you weren't on, she's opening your mics. It will default to mute. If you'd like to jump in and ask a question, please feel free. I may have a couple awkward pauses here as I'm a little bit under the weather this morning, so I'm doing this from home. Make sure stay safe, protect everybody. Please hit the raise hand button if you have a question and want to jump in. I want to be really clear. I'm not the technical guy here. This is really about sort of the philosophy of how what we've found to work in successfully positioning and selling cybersecurity in the space. And as Susanna alluded to, it's really all about the right story. And I'll start with my initial training back in the era of the Lucent communications organization, and for those of you who maybe don't know what that is, because it seems like a lifetime ago, it was spun out of AT&T, was one of the most successful communication companies in the world for a while, and had a lot of AT&T DNA in it. And one of the things we used to talk about all the time was just tell the story. It is really important to be able to relate to people and to be able to have the customer understand what you're doing for them and how the story works. And a lot of clients, especially in the mid-market and even more as you go down market into the SMB space. Cybersecurity isn't a technical issue; it's a business issue, and that goes all the way up to enterprise as well. And the sales gets more complex as you go further up market, but a lot of this is really about understanding what we're solving for and how to make that relatable to a business owner in a lot of cases. So we'll talk about it, and we do it in the format of two truths and a lie, and it's just a simple way to kind of get the message through to the customers. So next slide, please. And one more. There we go. So cybersecurity is a problem on a host of fronts. Technology in general is a challenge for businesses. Cybersecurity goes beyond just a challenge to a real problem. Cybersecurity is a risk management issue. Cybersecurity is about whether or not an entrepreneur can sleep at night, whether or not a CEO is doing the right things as a fiduciary for their business, whether or not they understand how to protect their employees' information, their customers' information, the company's secrets in some cases, and everything about it. So we really, when we're talking to partners and even talking to their clients with them, we really start to focus on these business problems that are out there. And, there's a few ways to do this if you're an MSP or a VAR and you're talking to your customers. But at the end of the day, having an understanding of what you're solving for is mission critical. And the problem looks like this. There's 1,500 solutions out there to choose from. If you throw, I guess to put it in the parlance of a story, Chicago area, we have a lot of Greek restaurants here. And when you go to a Greek restaurant, the menu is like 60 pages long with hundreds of items to choose from. And they're probably all great, but it's overwhelming to people when they look at it, right? Especially if you're famished, you're going to go in there and want to order all of it. When you look at cybersecurity and technology from a customer's perspective, there's 1,500 point solutions out there. So how do you help navigate that? There's not enough people in the business to manage these tools. And once you start getting this data, you have an affirmative responsibility to do something about it. That's a real conundrum, because even if you start choosing the right tools and you bring people in to manage them and customize them, now you've got all this data and you've got all these responsibilities. And if these people turn over, if they're expensive and they turn over and you're constantly hiring, one of a few things happens. Customers become very good at managing tools, but that doesn't mean they're secure. Customers start to focus on compliance and checking boxes, but that doesn't mean that they're secure either, right? So they start spending more and more money, buy another tool for this narrow solution, another one for that, replace this guy because he left. All of a sudden, I've got all this data and it says, oh my God, I need to do this thing over here and this project over here, and that might cost me more money. This spiral, this downward spiral for a lot of customers makes it attractive for them to just bury their head in the sand and hope that they don't get breached, or in some cases willfully ignore the fact that they probably are being breached and just hope it doesn't get disclosed. So that is a real technology issue, a real business issue, that if you try to address it from a technology problem, we don't believe you're doing the customer a real service. You're in many ways only going to serve to confuse them more and overwhelm them. Truth number 2 is the workforce shortage just continues to grow. And this is part of the business problem. It's a huge part of the business problem. So when you look at what's going on out there, and you look at customers, who are trying to solve this problem by hiring people. Cybersecurity is a 24/7 business, true cybersecurity. I mean, you can put in a firewall, you can put endpoint protection on there, which I see estimates ranging from 6 to 10% effectiveness and things like that. You can do a lot of little things, but it takes people to run these tools. And customers don't have the budget. They barely have the budget for the tools, much less for the people. And, as the shortage continues to grow, that becomes a huge business problem of hiring and firing and being held hostage to your Splunk developer at 180 grand a year who's doing it his way and making it impossible for you to move on to other things. So this is not going to abate worldwide. It continues to be exacerbated. I've seen estimates as high as 3 million by 2022 at this point. And in fact, this has probably been exacerbated by the pandemic, as we have seen the cyber attacks get amped up in this COVID era. So, next slide, please. This is a big lie. There really isn't an easy fix, and we don't believe that we should be talking to customers about an easy fix. It is a complicated business problem. You have to understand a lot about what your clients' expectations are. You have to understand their tolerance for risk. You have to understand their capabilities for risk management. So when we have this conversation, we really focus on a discussion around risk management, around understanding the business drivers, around understanding, are they looking for compliance? Or are they looking for security? Do they want both? How do they plan to get there? And we can accelerate the roadmap for them, and we can provide them with opportunities to make it better, but we must explore and understand their goals. And in a lot of cases, when the customer may not fully understand the risk, especially the SMB and mid-sized customers. They might think that they have nothing of value. That's not true. And I can tell you firsthand, even from our partners, most partners, when we deploy some of our solutions across their own networks, we start finding things that need attention very quickly. And it's really critically important. And these are people who are taking a lot of care and a lot of caution and using a lot of technology, but aren't necessarily focused on the bigger picture of risk and understanding all of the different levels of risk from a security perspective. So what can we do? We focus on information, and I talk a lot about this when I get the opportunity to talk to prospective partners, because again, it's about being able to sit down and tell a story. And then it's about being able to continue to tell your story as you're talking with a client over months and years, and being able to help them understand that story. At the end of the day, managed security using the XDR platform that we leverage is about information. It's about as simple as we can make it. This dashboard that you're seeing in front of us is millions or billions of tiny little data points that have been mined and correlated into information, distilled down into information that we can leverage as alerts, and we can look at it. And when we talk about how to use this information, we use this information in a way that a customer will benefit at a business level. There's really layers of information. There's a way we use this information, and we use this to assess our performance. We use it to assess what's going on with customer networks. We use it to understand how to help our MSP partners and our VAR partners and our distribution partners with providing information to their customers. We use it as a threat intel feed because with every piece of data we gather on one network, it benefits all of our networks because of the way our system multi-tenancy is structured. So we use that information in a way that suits our business and benefits our business. Our partners then use that information in the same way for their business, both internally to their network and across their clients. And then it's about sitting down with your end customers and saying, now, how do we look at this? How does this impact your business? Here's how you're performing against your peers. Here's things we're seeing with other clients that we have some concerns about these trends and this information. And we believe that the solution is X, Y, and Z for you, Mr. Customer. So it's all about how we use the information that we're gathering, how we collectively sit down and have conversations all the way through this complex supply chain. And for us and our partners, again, this is where it becomes about you plus us. This is about you and your customers. We're here to help bring all of this information, all of this enriched context to your business and to your customer's business, because they're going to get levels of insight about how their network is used that they've never seen before. You're going to be able to tell a story to them about what that means, because in many cases they won't understand it, and how that impacts their business, how it impacts the way they do things, and how it affects their risk. And we'll be able to show them trending information. We'll be able to show them things that talk about specific assets, things that talk about specific types of incidents, things that focus on specific areas of the attack vectors. But when we talk about it with them, we want to talk about it in a way in how it impacts their business. And we see customers respond very well to that because it's the part that they understand, which is their business. I see on forums, I see MSPs talking about essentially how, I'm searching for the right word here, how uneducated their customers are at times, or how in some cases ignorant their customers can be at some times. And ignorant is an okay word for that, because they're not experts at this stuff. We are, and that's why they need us. And understanding that is okay. Willful ignorance is bad, but ignorance because you haven't been educated is not. It's our job to educate them. Thinking that they are in some cases less than intelligent is not good, because they are intelligent, and the fact is they're probably experts at what they do. And we're fortunate here at Highwire, and in particular in the Overwatch teams, our customers are as educated on the business as us in general. We might bring some additional security expertise, but dealing corp to corp, IT to IT, tech people to tech people, we have both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that we all speak the same language and understand at some common level certain pieces. The disadvantage is, by the way, that we assume everybody is at the same level, and that we speak in terms that we assume everybody will understand. We could all do a better job in how we break this down, especially when it's security related, because I'll be the first to admit I knew very little about security when we started on this journey a few years ago. And it's only through having incredibly intelligent and incredibly talented people around the organization that we've been able to accelerate our growth and accelerate the learning curve of those like me who understood technology, but not security. So it's all about how we use this information to paint pictures for our customers. And I'll close this little segment with this. I was talking to a gentleman at my son's 7-on-7 football about a year ago, and he's a teacher, and he was an art teacher. And I said, I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I sure wish I did. And he stopped me in my tracks and said, that's not true. He said, I can tell from this discussion that you're incredibly artful. Your art is in how you can animate a story with words and how you can bring somebody into that story and have them visualize it. That's what we all need to be doing with our customers when we're talking about how to engage them in this, because this is otherwise a very boring and often expensive topic to be talking about with a customer. And if we're not engaging them in that and really helping them visualize that risk, and that's why this graphic is up. This graphic helps them visualize and understand. If they don't understand what's going on in that globe, then you probably should just move along very quickly, because they're not really a great customer. Next slide, please. This is a really important piece of the story, and it's talking to a client about being proactive. People think about people think about knock services in a certain way, right? In knock services, it's a very active sort of thing. You get an alarm, you swat it down, right? You fix the problem, you kill that alarm, you move on. Transactional, active. Sometimes the machines are doing it, sometimes people are doing it, sometimes a combination of both. With security, some people have this sort of set it and forget it mentality. That doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked for a long time. It may never have really worked, but it made people feel better. We want to talk about being proactive and creating good hygiene. Customers relate to that. There's no magic. There's no silver bullet out there. There's no magic tool that fixes everything. But when we start telling the story and talking about how to take security and be proactive, be a little offensive in these things, it's a different conversation, again, because it's about managing risk. It's about moving yourself into good hygiene. Customers today, you may stumble across a customer if they're doing, some sort of firewall protection, if they have a next-gen firewall, and most customers do, and they have some sort of endpoint, maybe not managed. They might be a 1 or a 2 on a 1 to 10 scale security-wise. We want to move them to a 6 or a 7 through good hygiene and proactive habits like automated patching. And by the way, number one predictor cybersecurity companies use when underwriting a company is patch management policy and whether or not it's being executed. Because if you're not doing this, then you're probably not doing much else right. So do you have a patch policy, Mr. Customer? How are you executing it? It's a pain in the butt for most of the customers we talk to. How do we, for a few dollars a month, show them how to educate, how to automate this process and do this? And by the way, telling a story, and this is really important. We just had a client who gets audited quarterly. It's part of what they pay one of our partners for. Their auditors came back and said, you don't have certain critical updates on your machines, and they failed the audit. They immediately came back to us and said, what the hell's going on here? We failed this audit. We were able to provide them all of the information in a matter of about 45 minutes, all of the information that they needed to go back to their auditors and say, this is not correct. These patches were rolled up in this master patch, and this major update covered all of these minor updates, because we were able to show a proactive behavior, show the policies that we're using, show the policy groups of the servers that we're patching for them, and show what's in each of those updates, all by pulling a simple report. So it goes back to the last slide. It's about information and the power of information too. So it's about continuously checking. It's about being able to constantly be in a position where we're scanning. We're doing continuous vulnerability scanning. We're not just doing moment in time checks, and being able to explain and tell a story to the customer that this, again, is not a passive endeavor for us. So how do we do that? We scan your network. We're always looking at what's going on. Vulnerability assessments and moment in time tell us a thing, and usually give us a list of things to go do and look at. By using good managed tools, and that's really the story of the Overwatch, is here's 4, 5, 6 really easy to understand tools, boiled down, fully managed, solving that business problem for you, Mr. Customer. If you take advantage of all of these things, we can continuously monitor the network. We can continuously see what's going on, both for active vulnerabilities, end user behavior analysis, sandboxing any file with a new hash, all of these features and functions that we bring to the table in a cost-effective way that solves the problem of them having to add 8 to 10 people, buy 5 or 6 different software tools. We're able to start monitoring, continuously check on what's going on, use proactive behaviors, and then next slide, educate our users constantly. You have to educate the users. I tell a joke to customers. It's a simple little joke, but it's the God's honest truth, is that we believe that our problem all boils down to 2 types of people: everybody who works here and everybody who doesn't. At the end of the day, no matter how good all of this other stuff is, if we're not educating our users and teaching them how to look at an email and decide if it's good or bad, and if it's at all questionable, move on or call the sender, those sorts of things, it does no good to have the best defenses, the best perimeter, the best interior monitoring, the best cloud management and monitoring solution. It does absolutely no good if the users don't understand it. So we have to educate, educate, educate. We want to talk to our customers again in that risk management story, that risk management conversation. We want to talk to our customers about creating a culture of security. As you saw in the opening slide, we have multiple different businesses here within Highwire. We have a global technology and solution practice, installation practice. We have a national as well as a regional electrical practice. And in every meeting in our electrical business, we talk about safety. It's important. I don't ever want to have to tell one of our team members' spouse or family that they died. That's a horrible thing to do, right? So we talk about safety and we create a culture of safety, and we have people who are responsible about it, and the guys talk about it every day on the job site. Here in this world, we need to be talking about security. We need to be talking about being smart, and we need to talk about understanding what our risk is as an organization. Our risk is high. Your risk as an MSP is high, because there are people out there who will view you as a prize simply to put your head on a mount. There's others that will view you as a prize because you have access to lots of customers and they want to get to your customers. So, and make no mistakes about it, we've seen, even during onboarding, we've seen a partner who had an exploit that looked very much like a ransomware going on, because they want to get your customers' files, and that one-to-many vector is you. So understanding your risk and then helping your clients understand their risk, a lot of this is simply about education. And that starts in the sales cycle, helping them understand what's available to them, helping them understand how and why this works and what this actually does for their business. And sometimes there's an ROI in this. Most of the time there's not. The real story and the real understanding of this comes from questions like, we had a doctor talking about whether he was HIPAA compliant or not, and our CISO was walking him through, and he said something about the fines, and our CISO agreed with him that yes, it's true that the fines wouldn't be that bad in terms of what this would cost over a 6 or 7 year time frame. But the CISO asked him the next question and said, what's it worth to your reputation to go down for this? Even if the fines aren't a big deal, what's it worth? And he was talking about $250,000 in terms of the fines that he could face. And he said a hell of a lot more than $250,000. And the awakening happened at that moment, right? That no matter what he needed to spend, and in this gentleman's case, he needed to spend a tremendous amount of money on laptops and encryption and basic infrastructure, because through this process of discovery and talking about the business risks that he was facing, the MSP partner quickly discovered that there was I believe roughly $100,000 worth of upgrades that this gentleman needed to make just to get to a place where we could even begin to start managing and monitoring his network. So while that may have seemed cost prohibitive, in working with him and helping him understand the risk and helping him understand the real true downsides, it became apparent to him that he had to do it all. Next slide. So that's it for the slides, and 30 minutes kind of nailed it. I don't like to waste an hour of anybody's time. I'd really like to get any feedback you guys have, any thoughts, discussions, because this is not about me rambling. This should be about you guys and what you want to get out of it. So if anybody has any questions, thoughts they'd like to share, success stories on how they're positioning in security, whether it has anything to do with our solutions or not, what's winning for your customers, what's not. In an ideal world, frankly, on top of the fact that we have a business to run, we're very passionate about providing security, especially for mid-market and down, when people think it's affordable or not doable, not manageable. You've got success stories. There's a great opportunity to do that, and we'd love to learn from you too.
Okay, so we have Mike Talarico asking, can you talk about some differentiators Overwatch has over some other providers like SecureWorks and Arctic Wolf?
Sure. Great question, Mike. So, and again, I want to be clear, I'm not really a technical expert, but I'll start with this. SecureWorks, from the conversations we've had with a lot of our partners, one tends to be pretty heavy duty price. Two, they are both channel and direct. I believe far more direct than channel. So the opportunity with us generally tends to be, we're here exclusively to support you. We don't work with end users. All of our resources are available to you, including our CTO and our CISO. Our CTO, David Barton, who some of you have probably met, is also a CISO. So those resources are available to you guys. And again, this is a you plus us discussion. All of our contracts are with you. Your contracts are with your client. Ideally, they should piggyback to each other. And this is really an important piece, because that builds your enterprise value, not SecureWorks or somebody else. A lot of the other competitors, as we understand it, their contracts are geared that essentially they kind of own that customer and you're reselling their paperwork. There is a pro to that in risk management if you want, but in terms of enterprise value, that's a big deal that our partners seem to respond very well to. You know your customers, you own your customers, you have value proposition to your customers. We're here in the background to support you and to make that work. As far as Arctic Wolf, a couple of things. Arctic Wolf is a PE-driven company, and if you followed what's going on, they're out raising capital and driving growth. They seem to be pretty proud of their products and their pricing. They have to make certain returns for their investors, so that their pricing, from what we've seen from partners, seems to continue to go up. They're using an old legacy Elk stack and then acquiring other software solutions and trying to kind of bolt them all together. They're wed to the products that they own. Our Overwatch strategy is a little different. I'll start with the fact that we're using an open XDR platform, which I know it gets down into the weeds a little bit on the technical piece, and I don't want to go too far into that because one, I'll probably embarrass myself, and two, this is really about focusing on sales. But the XDR platform is really critical and really fundamentally a strategy decision for us. XDR is open and allows us to take our customers and our partners, let me rephrase it, to take our partners and their customers as we find them. And we talk about that philosophically here. It's not up to me to dictate to you what your stack is. Each of our partners has a different stack. They have different things they want to sell. Our Open XDR solution is able to accommodate those all via either APIs or parsers. Sometimes it takes a little time to build them and customize them, but especially in our enterprise customers, we spend a lot of time understanding them, and we want to integrate whatever information they have. If it has a JSON log, we can ingest it. If we can ingest it, we want the context. The more context we feed the machine learning and the AI, the better it becomes, the better we all are, and the easier we can manage a customer's entire infrastructure in a single pane of glass. So I think that's probably the most critical technical piece. And then things sort of cascade off of there. It gives us and you the flexibility to accept those customers as they are and to be able to support just about everything that's in them. The other piece then becomes we can add solutions based on emerging technology faster because we're not wed to any. And we're approached literally every week by 2 to 4 or 5 different vendors every week. And that's the CTO's job, is to sift through which ones make sense to integrate and offer to our customers, which ones make sense to bundle in to the baseline solution, which ones make sense to do as an a la carte. And if in 2 or 3 years something comes along that's better than XDR, we will be able to offer our customers a migration path to that tool set. Because again, this is about a managed service, not a particular tool. It's not telling the customer this is the only way. It's being able to package that to the customer and say, in 2 or 3 years, when something better comes along, we'll be able to migrate you along that path. You don't have to worry about it. Your renewal, we might talk about our options, right, for a client and give them that path forward without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And that's, we believe, a very significant strategy decision that our partners have to make. Because if you sign a customer up for something where the software is owned and the software is constantly in development, they're not throwing that out. They're going to continue to put money into that elk stack and try to make it better and try to play catch up. But it's the difference between companies that were born in the cloud versus companies that tried to migrate to the cloud. One is a hell of a lot harder than the other. So thank you, Roger. Sorry about the mic thing. I hope that answered your question. Great question. What is an elk stack? That goes to my earlier point. Sometimes we make assumptions, right? And I just did it. So thank you for pointing that out. So an elk stack is basically the old Elastic. It's Elastic Kibana. It was a way in which it still is a way in which traditional SIEM platforms work, whereas the OpenXDR platform, it leverages Elastic, but we're looking not just at logs, and the elk stacks are really sort of SIEM focused, log focused. We're looking at about 13 different things because of the way we sit, and we're ingesting and this is admittedly a downside to XDR. We're ingesting massive amounts more information. We're looking at all of the information on every packet, all of the information that's relevant to security. There's about 13 different things, not just the security log files, but we're looking at any piece in that header, and we're stripping all that data out either at a sensor level or an agent level. And there's some slight differences in the way we do that. You know, an agent sitting on a server, a sensor sitting in a network or an environment, virtual or physical. or via the API. We're taking all the stuff we don't need and discarding it, taking what we do need and then looking at it. And then we're looking at more pieces of it. So we're actually taking far more information, which requires far more complexity on the back end and far more horsepower. But we're able to take in today, we're already built for more than 1.2 terabytes a day and can expand that infinitely. And we buy in those kind of chunks, which gives us some pretty good competitive pricing and allows us to take it and price it in a way that works for our partners. We don't have preset, and this is another, I think, competitive advantage. I don't have a preset pricing model in terms of it doesn't matter if I price it in a way that only works for me. We go to market with you guys and therefore want to be able to offer you a model that syncs with how you go to market with your customers. You want to go IP address, fine. Asset-based, fine. User-based, fine. Let's talk about a business model that works. In the enterprise, as we scale up, let's do a POC with the customer and understand what our ingestion will look like so that we can understand what our cost is and put together a model that's going to be the most competitive for a customer. We don't want to ever get to a place that we're so rigid where we're driving the bus. You and your customers ultimately drive the bus because our customers sign our paychecks. So we've got a tremendous amount of flexibility in that. Any questions?
Mark, how much time should we invest into convincing customers who don't think they need cybersecurity services?
Zero. If a customer doesn't believe that there is a cybersecurity risk to their business, I candidly tell people all the time, I would not spend 1 minute talking to that client about it unless I were an MSP who was focused on telling my clients that you can't be my customer any longer if you don't adapt to our security offering. And a lot of our MSP partners are doing just that. But we talk about the process. The process is very straightforward. For a net new customer, question number one is, do you believe that you have a cybersecurity risk? If the answer to that is no, that's a pretty strong qualifying question. If the customer does not believe that there's an issue, convincing, let's look at it this way. I think I heard this week that there was a lot going on in the realm of politics. I don't know. I've been trying to avoid it by staying outdoors in green spaces with a lot of sand traps. And you think about how many people did any of us change their minds ranting and raving about your beliefs on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. And I raised my hand, guilty as charged. When people don't believe something or don't believe there's a risk right off the bat, convincing them to change that is largely going to result in you spending a lot of time and somebody else maybe coming in and swooping it up later. But those sorts of customers are only going to believe when they've been hacked. And many years ago, I knew a fellow who sold burglar alarms. His name was Frank Benson Jr., an interesting character. And, Frank was very candid that if somebody didn't think there was a problem, they were just never going to buy a burglar alarm. And he said he loved his in-laws so much that he kicked in their back door to convince them that burglary was an option, and they got an alarm a week later. So, short of being able to demonstrate to a customer the risk quickly, they're going to be hard to convince. Now, if you are an MSP who is concerned that your customer's security is a risk to your business, then that's a different question and that's a different scenario. There's going to need to be some education. And some of our MSPs are sitting down with clients and saying, this is now part of my stack and your price per X has changed to Y. And here's why. because when we do sit down and talk to our partners, especially when they're just thinking about how to offer managed security to their customers, one of the questions that we pose is, do your customers think you're already doing security for them? And there's often kind of a pregnant pause in that conversation, because if you're doing managed firewall and endpoint for them, some customers might think that's enough, and they think that's, an active security solution, and it's not even scratching the surface these days. So what happens when they get breached? And they will get breached. So what happens when they get breached? Who do they blame? They rarely blame themselves. They're going to blame you as their MSP. And we're seeing that. So when it comes down to that path of education, that's again helping them understand the risk. We don't believe in going out and scaring the living hell out of people and using fear and all those things as a motivators. It's understanding their business and helping to explain to them what that risk profile looks like, helping them understand that they probably have already been breached. I did see an MSP one time in a forum, a gentleman saying that no network he's ever managed has ever been breached. I would challenge that on its face. It's almost laughable, because it's not just breaches from outside that we have to worry about. Every employer probably has employees poaching data when they leave. That's a pretty common thing. Moving data laterally to personal accounts, that's data leakage. Those are breaches. Those are things that we can pick up and detect that, as a business owner, you need to know about. That's a whole other form of risk, is insider risk, right? And user behavioral analysis helps us pick up on those sorts of things, where others, where security logs might just fall short on those kind of things. So great question, Susanna. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions before we wrap this up, guys? All right. Well, just a reminder, guys, to log into the portal to get CPE credits, just a quick 3-question exam. Also, register for next month's cybersecurity marketing course. It's Thursday, the first Thursday of next month. That's December 3rd. The guest speaker is Callie Henderson. She is a marketing genius. She has actually helped me and the Overwatch team tremendously in our marketing strategy. So make sure you register for that. And Mark touched on a lot of different tool sets that we use in our platform. If you're interested in our partner program and all the benefits that come along with it, check us out, highwirenetworks.com/Overwatch. You'll also receive an email from me tomorrow with information on all of these next steps. Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you, Mark, for coaching us and teaching us. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how great Callie is. If you're looking for insights into marketing, how to do it, how to work with your customers, she's an incredible asset for those of you who know the Channel Partners brand. She was instrumental in building it, and I strongly suggest that you don't miss that session.
Very good. Well, thank you guys again. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you back here next month. Bye.
Thanks for your time.